Yeah, my friend lives in Grand
We're
Cache.
on, are we streaming on YouTube now, Mackenzie? Okay, we're streaming now.
Yeah, we just went on.
Just a reminder to the committee members to mute if we're not talking.
You want us to mute?
If you're not talking yet.
Oh, all right.
Oh.
What if I'm really quiet?
What if someone drops a dish in your kitchen?
Not a chance.
Okay, so are we ready to get started? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the Town of Fort Erie Committee of Adjustment meeting on October 22nd, 2020. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. I now call this meeting to order. First, I would like to introduce you to the committee members and staff. Terry Moore, committee member. Chris Nutt, committee member. Kara Rach, Secretary Treasurer. Mackenzie Cece, she's our meeting host and is doing any background technical duties. And myself, I will be chairing tonight's meeting, and my name is Denise Vanosh. To those members of the public who may be participating electronically in the public meeting portion of the meeting tonight, you may wish to use your view on gallery view by clicking the top right hand corner from the speaker view. I also ask that you're mindful of background noise for the duration of the meeting. Please also note that participating members of the public will remain in the virtual waiting room via telephone or electronically until they are called upon during the public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act for the purposes of considering both minor variance and consent applications. Members of the committee have been provided with all written comments received by agencies and the public prior to this meeting. Committee members are asked to mute their microphones until you are asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak and to vote by raising your hand. The purpose of the meeting is to obtain input from residents relative to the application. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked to raise your virtual hand when you wish to speak. If you're on a computer, you could do so by clicking participants at the bottom in the bottom center of the screen, and then by clicking raise hand. If you are participating via mobile device, you can tap more on the bottom right and then tap raise hand. You will then be brought into the meeting by staff. You can then unmute yourself and start your video by using the buttons on the screens. If you are participating by phone and you wish to raise your hand, press *9 and you will be unmuted by staff. Then next we will hear from applicant or agent, then those in support or opposition of the application, or if you wish to ask questions. We ask that each attendee keep their comments to under 10 minutes to allow for attendees the opportunity to speak. Applicants and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar once decisions have been made on their application. Each application will proceed in the following order. First, number 1, Secretary Treasurer to summarize purpose and effect of the application and any comments. 2, any comments received. Number 2, applicant called upon to speak and make further comments if they have any. Step number 3, committee members will ask questions of the applicant. Step number 4, the public will be asked to speak one at a time, and you will ask you to state your full name and your address for the records, and you'll be able to comment on the application. Step number 6, the chair will close the application once all comments have been heard. And then I think that was step number 5. Step number 6, committee members will make a decision on the application, approved, refusal, or deferral, and state if any conditions apply. We ask that you please address your comments and questions directly through the chair. Each application will be heard in the order in which they appear on the agenda. The notice of decisions will be provided to all applicants stating the outcome of the hearing and any conditions of approval if required. Please note that correspondence and comments received this evening are restricted to the matters of the Committee of Adjustment and the Planning Act. In considering each application this evening, the Committee of Adjustment will have due regard for the provisions of Section 45 and Section 53 of the Ontario Planning Act of 1990 as amended. A 20-day appeal period exists for each application heard this evening. Final appeal dates are noted on the notice of decision and are available by requesting a copy in writing. I will begin by asking the committee members present if they have any conflicts of interest with respect to any of the applications we are hearing this evening. And Terry, do you have any conflicts?
I have no conflicts of interest.
Thank you. Chris, do you?
I have no conflicts, Madam Chair.
And nor do I. I now ask Secretary Treasurer Kara if notice of this meeting was properly given in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Planning Act.
Yes, it was.
And have you received any requests for adjournment or withdrawal respecting tonight's applications?
No, we have not.
Okay, so now we will proceed with the first application. Our first file is going to be minor variance A28/20, as well as minor variance A29/20. A28/20 is 112 Ridge Road North, lot number 2. Minor variance file A29/20 is 110 Ridge Road North, lot 3. The applicant is Mountain View Homes for both applications, and it is Ken Gonyu. Are you ready to proceed tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Carol, will you please read all correspondence and comments received?
Certainly. Through you, Ken, if it's all right, I'm going to read both applications together.
Sure, that's
They're
fine.
so similar. There's just one comment that's different, but we'll get to that when we conclude. But the purpose and effect of both these applications was to permit an increase to the maximum permitted lot coverage for proposed 2-story single detached dwellings with covered unenclosed rear decks. The Ontario Planning Act provides that the minor variance must meet the following 4 tests to be considered minor and supportable. Is the variance minor in nature? The proposal to increase the maximum lot coverage to the proposed detached dwellings to 40% is minor in nature. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow the construction of covered decks, which will provide outdoor amenity space in the rear yards. As the applicant is not proposing any changes to the proposed dwellings, the increased lot coverage will not result in undue massing impacts to the neighboring parcels. Further, the proposed dwelling exceeds the bylaw requirements to the interior and rear yard setbacks. Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the land and buildings? The proposal to construct the single detached dwellings on the subject lands are appropriate and desirable for this area. Covered decks in the rear yard will provide desirable outdoor living space and are common elements when near subdivisions. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The general intent of maximum lot coverage regulations in the zoning bylaw is to ensure that there is sufficient space on lots for adequately sized dwellings, amenity area, and to ensure that the new development does not cause undue massing impacts on abutting properties. The proposal meets the intent of the bylaw, and while the requested variances are a slight departure from the bylaw requirement, the proposed covered decks will provide outdoor amenity space in the rear yard. Further, as the dwellings are sufficiently set back from the abutting dwellings, there are no adverse impacts due to massing. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the official plan? The medium high density residential land use designation permits residential dwellings. The requested variances meet the intent of the official plan. Based on these comments, planning staff support the requested variances. There were no comments received from engineering staff, no comments from the community planning, and on file A29, it should be noted that the chief building official did make a comment that the submitted drawings for the minor variance differ from the drawings that have been reviewed as part of the building permit application. The drawings for the variance have larger front and rear porches, and if the applicant is proposing to use these plans submitted for the variance, revised drawings will be required for the building permit. That concludes both minor variance comments for A28 and A29 for Ridge Road North.
Thank you. Ken, would you like to make any comments on the application or any of the correspondence that we received tonight?
Yeah, just briefly, the reason for the variance is always the customer wanted to have a covered porch rather than just typical yard space, which is a common trend these days. The coverage, we're over just a little bit. We're asking for 40% just to make sure that we're within the approval lines of a 40% coverage permission. It's met the 4 tests and staff support it. All the other zoning provisions are complied with, and the matter of the plans being different than what was submitted for the building permit, that will be addressed by our building staff when they finalize the permit application. So there wasn't any intent to mislead anyone. That was just found out, I guess, afterwards. So we'll get that taken care of before the permit is issued. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Terry, do you have a question of the applicant?
I have no questions.
Okay. Chris, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. I will now ask if anyone in the audience wishes to comment. Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one who wishes to speak to this application.
We'll now state that the public hearing, are we ready to make a decision on the applications before us? I guess not, or okay. All right, so we're ready now to make a decision. So I'll consider the public hearing portion closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views on the proposal. So I'll start with Terry.
I'll be voting in favor, Madam Chair. The request is minor. The additional lot coverage is for a covered deck, which would result in minimal massing impacts and should not negatively impact the surrounding properties.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be voting in favor to support the applications on both of these. It does meet the 4 tests. The rear-facing yards are internal to the new development, so there's no impact on existing neighborhoods. And the massing, I can't see these massing on neighboring homes according to the drawings. So I'll be supporting the applications.
Very good. So now I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, that minor variance file A28 and A29, based on the oral and written submissions, be approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, and now all in favor? Show of hands. Okay, very good. Your motion is carried. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. And we thank you for attending this evening.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, so we'll now proceed with consent file B18/20, Town Line Road. The agent is Urban and Environmental Management, Inc., Greg Terrace. The applicant is Amit Kara. Are you ready to proceed this evening?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. Kara, will you please read all related correspondence and comments received?
I will. Subject area is identified as having archaeological potential on Schedule D of the town's official plan. Agent has completed an archaeological assessment. No archaeological material was identified, and so the assessment staff concluded that no further studies were recommended. Niagara Region staff note that the current site boundary has been revised from the study area reviewed as part of the archaeological assessment conducted by the agent. Niagara Region staff therefore recommend that a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment and acknowledgement letter are received as a condition of his consent. property is zoned environmental conservation overlay, environmental protection, highway commercial, and highway site-specific highway commercial C3551. The development plan associated with this consent proposes a convenience store, a restaurant with a drive-through, and a gas bar. The current highway commercial zoning does not permit gasoline bars. The applicant has applied to change the zoning of Part 1 on the severance sketch to a new site-specific C3 zone that permits a gasoline bar and an increased driveway width. Town Council approved this zoning bylaw amendment at their meeting on October 13th. Final approval of the zoning bylaw amendment after passing of the bylaw with no appeals will be a condition of approval for this consent application. A private sanitary sewer and pump station is available in the area that is owned by Parkbridge Lifestyle Communities Incorporated, who operate the Black Creek Leisure Homes community. A development agreement is registered on title that requires the owner of Black Creek Leisure Homes community to provide access and capacity to any development west of the QEW and south of Netherby Road. This development intends to extend the private sanitary sewer to service the proposed new parcel. Analysis of the existing pump station and private sanitary sewer will occur at the site plan approval stage, and the applicant agent and Parkbridge Lifestyle Communities will need to collaborate to ensure that the private sanitary sewer system is adequate to support the proposed development. The consent application proposes the creation of a new parcel intended for commercial development in the Douglastown Black Creek neighborhood area of Fort Erie. The subject property is located within the urban boundary and has access to municipal water service. A nearby private sanitary sewer will be extended to service the proposed new lot. The new parcel is shown as Part 1 on the consent sketch and is proposed for a convenience store, a restaurant with a drive-through, and a gasoline bar. The retained parcel on Part 2 on the sketch will remain vacant land. This proposal will result in the creation of Part 1 with 153.37 meters of lot frontage along Town Line Road and 2.44 hectares of lot area. Part 2 will remain with multiple frontages in excess of 30 meters and a lot area of 14.97 hectares. The C3-551 zoning requires a minimum frontage of 30 meters and a minimum area of 0.18 hectares. The creation of the new parcel for commercial development in the enhanced commercial area is consistent with provincial, regional, and town planning policy and is considered good planning. Staff note that 2% cash in lieu of parkland dedication is required for the creation of a new lot for commercial development. Planning staff have no objections to this application subject to the following conditions: approval of the zoning bylaw amendment file, payment of 2% cash in lieu of parkland dedication, that a reference plan and be submitted with a legal description to the Secretary Treasurer, and that the final consent fee is paid to the town. Infrastructure states their approval and have no conditions as they will be addressed at the site plan process. No comments received from the building department. The community planning manager stated that they had no comments and stated for clarification to the committee that the requirement for cash in lieu of parkland and street trees will be addressed at site plan process. Just to clarify for the committee, I did confirm with both Signe and Daryl, and the cash in lieu of parkland will be required as a condition of this consent application, not at site plan process. And the region provided comments that they have no objections to the proposed consent, subject to the satisfaction of any local requirements and the following condition: that the applicant submit a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment and an acknowledgement letter from the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, confirming that the archaeological resources and concerns have been addressed. That concludes your file, E18.
Thank you. Would you like to make any comments on the application or any of the correspondence received? Mr. Torres?
Yes, I just would like to clarify for the committee, through you, Madam Chair, that the additional archaeological study has been commissioned, and that it should be done in the next 4 weeks. The archaeologist hopes to be on site next week, weather permitting.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the committee members have questions for the applicant? Terry, do you?
Actually, the agent just answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time, Madam Chair.
And nor do I. Does anyone in the audience wish to comment? Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one who wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. Are the members ready to make a decision? I'm looking yes, nodding yes. Okay, so we'll consider the public hearing portion closed, and I'll now ask the members present to express their views on the proposal. I'll start with Terry.
I'll be voting in favor. The spot zoning or the zoning procedure actually tailor fits the size of the property, not the other way around. So based on all the information that was provided, I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, thank you. And Chris?
I'll be voting in favor as well, Madam Chair. I think this is meets the 4 tests minor. It, like Terry had said, it's a good fit for this area. So I'll be supporting the application.
Okay, thank you. So I'll now entertain a motion with conditions. Go ahead, Terry.
Oh, okay. Based on the oral and written submissions and subject to the conditions of the provisional consent, I make a motion that the consent application B18 be approved with the conditions as stated.
May I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, Chris, yeah. Your hand kind of cut in and out there, Chris.
Yeah.
So the motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision. Decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. And thank you for attending tonight.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Okay, so now we'll move on to consent file B19/20. The address is 1096 Barnhart Street. The owner is Dominic Socia, and the agent is Al Ianello. Are you ready to proceed tonight, Mr. Ianello?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay. Kara, will you please read all correspondence and comments?
This consent application proposes the creation of a new parcel intended for residential development in a rural residential area in Fort Erie. Part one on the Severance sketch is a retained parcel and will continue the use as a residential dwelling. Part 1 will retain the existing municipal address of 1096 Barnhart Street. Part 2 on the Severance sketch is proposed as a new parcel and is intended for future residential development. The application proposes the following. Part 1, 67.06 meters of frontage and 0.49 hectares in area, as is Part 2. Part 1 and 2 both meet the minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements of the RR rural residential zoning, which requires a minimum frontage of 60 meters and 0.4 hectares. The proposal is consistent with provincial, regional, and town planning policy. This proposal entails creation of an infill lot in an area approved for rural residential development. The owner and applicant have completed a hydrogeological assessment that demonstrates that this proposal is capable of supporting a private septic system without negative impacts to the groundwater. Payment of 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication will be required as this application will result in the creation of new developable parcel. Planning staff note that the front line of Part 1 on the Severance sketch will change from Barnhart Street to Pound Avenue as a result of the Severance application. Similarly, the frontage along Barnhart Street will become an exterior side lot line. A previous minor variance application, file A52/1987, was granted to permit the location of the existing dwelling. Since this approval predates the current zoning bylaw and the current rural residential zone requirements for the front yard setback and exterior side yard setback are the same, Planning staff are of the opinion that a new minor variance is not required as the existing setbacks are not being made worse by this consent application. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application subject to the following conditions. Removal of any accessory buildings or structures that may encroach on Part 2. Confirmation that any accessory buildings or structures to remain in Part 1 meet the provisions of the zoning bylaw and any other applicable town bylaws to the satisfaction of planning and development. Payment of 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the town. That the applicants provide the Secretary Treasurer with a reference plan as well as a legal description, and that the final consent certificate payment is made. Comments from the infrastructure department, they approve it based on the condition that an overall lot grading plan for Part 2 is submitted by the applicant owner for review. The building official states a review of the proposed consent application for 1096 Barnhart has been reviewed, as well as aerial imagery and town records, and it appears there are a number of accessory structures that are not noted on the site plan drawing. These structures are in close proximity to the proposed lot line, and it's unsure if they will comply with the required setbacks. The structures also appear larger than 10 square meters in area and require building permits. If the consent application is approved, it is requested that a condition be included that the required building permits for the accessory structures be obtained or the structures be removed prior to final consent approval. The manager of community planning reinstated the 5% cash in lieu, as requested that one tree be paid for, and that written permission noted that written permission is required from the town if the applicant wishes to remove any trees located in the municipal road allowance. The regions provided comments that they had no objections with the proposed consent application, as the application is consistent with provincial and regional policies for lot creation. And that, I believe, concludes all the comments for that application.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to make any comments on the application or the correspondence received? Oh, we can't, sorry, we can't hear you. I'm not sure why. He's unmuted. Try now, maybe?
Yeah. Can you?
No. Are you care, or is anybody else able to hear him?
We could almost hear you, so maybe get closer to the, are you using a laptop?
Yeah, I'm using a laptop.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
That's better.
Okay, sorry about that. So just one comment. I wanted to clarify about the accessory structures. So in our sketch on Part 1, there is a shed that is probably more than 50 feet from the proposed lot line for Part 2. What might be the confusion there is there are two temporary trailers that are just used for storage that are behind the shed, and they're temporary. So whatever is required, if they need to be moved, they would be moved.
Okay, thank you. Terry, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I have no questions.
Okay. Chris, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Is anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one who wishes to speak to this application.
Okay. Are the committee members ready to make a decision? We say yes. Okay, so we'll consider the public hearing portion closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views. I'll start again with Terry.
Okay. I'll be voting in favor. Both Parts 1 and Part 2 meet the minimum lot frontage and area requirements. Hydrological study has been completed to their satisfaction. This severance represents good planning as an efficient use of land, and is consistent with the provincial policy statement regarding infill lots and residential intensification. And there's a lot of properties in that area that are of a similar size. So I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, thank you. And Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be supporting the application based on what my colleague has said. It meets the 4 tests. It's a good use of infill lot, which is in line with the provincial policy statement. So again, I'll be supporting the application.
So now I'll entertain a motion with conditions on this application.
Madam Chair, based on the oral and written submissions presented tonight, I'll make a motion that consent application B19 be approved with the conditions as requested.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
And all in favor? Okay, so we got 3 hands. Your motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision. Decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. And we thank you for attending tonight.
Good. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now moving on to the last consent file tonight, B20/20, 317 Lakewood Avenue. The applicant is Brockview Cottages, Inc., Brian Keenan, and the owner is the same. Are you ready to proceed tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Carol, will you please read all correspondence and comments?
This consent application proposes the creation of new lot for future development of a residential dwelling. The proposed parcel shown as part 1 on the severed sketch. The retained parcel, part 2 on the sketch, will continue its use as a residential dwelling. Both parcels exceed the minimum lot frontage of 10 meters and minimum lot area of 260 square meters. The creation of infill residential lots in the urban area is supported by provincial, regional, and town planning policy and is considered good planning. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application, subject to the following conditions: that the concrete pad that encroaches on part 1 be removed, that an entrance permit be obtained from the town on part 2, that payment of 5% cash no parkland dedication be made to the town, that the Secretary Treasurer be provided with a reference plan and a legal description, and final consent certificate fee. Infrastructure Services have no objections based on the following conditions: that $500 be paid to the town for a street tree, and that an overall lot grading plan for part 1 is submitted for review by the applicant. Chief Building Official had no comments, and the Manager of Community Planning reiterated the 5% cash of lieu and the tree, and noted that written permission is required to remove any trees within the municipal road allowance. It appears that there are several large trees located in close proximity to the property line. Survey of all trees within 3 meters of the property lines is needed to determine ownership. If the trees are located on the adjacent property and overhang and will be impacted by construction, a tree preservation plan is required to identify how they will be protected during construction. And if the trees are on the applicant's property and intended for preservation, a tree preservation plan is also required. That concludes the comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Keenan, do you have any questions or comments on the application or the correspondence received?
No, I think we're pretty good.
Does the committee members have any questions? Terry, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I have no questions.
Chris, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
And I have no questions. And there's nobody left in the audience. So I guess we don't have to say, does anybody in the audience wish to comment? So the committee members, if you're ready to make a decision, we can close the public hearing portion. And I'll now have Terry express your views on the proposal.
I'm on. I'll be voting in favor, Madam Chair. Both parcels meet the frontage and area requirements. It's an efficient use of land, and it's consistent with the provincial policy statement regarding infill lots and residential intensification.
And Chris?
I'll be supporting the application for the same reasons that my colleague has just stated, and I agree with the creation of a new infill lot. It does follow provincial policy statement and is good use of land planning.
I'll now entertain a motion with conditions on this application. Terry?
Based on the oral and written submissions tonight, I'll make a motion that consent application B20 be approved with the conditions as requested.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
And all in favor? 3 hands. The motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision. The decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within the 20 days of the notice. And we thank you for attending tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Night.
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 Okay, may I ask for a motion for the committee to process the signing of the decisions concurred by the majority of members electronically?
I'll move to that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, very good. And I now ask if members have any corrections to the minutes for July, August, or September meeting minutes.
I have none, Madam Chair.
I have none.
Nor do I. So there being no further corrections and the minutes stand approved as circulated. Item number 15, do we have any new business to be brought forward?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Cheryl has left her position at the town with as a legislative assistant, who is probably who we would have had contact with as committee members. She's been replaced by Ashley Carter, who is actually come from Niagara Lake. She was the secretary treasurer at Niagara Lake. So if you have anything that you need from the clerk's department, she will be your new contact. I'll also put that in the minutes so that the other members are aware of it as well. And on a not so formal note, I was speaking with Sam Pasha yesterday on the telephone, and he sends his hellos to everybody and hopes everyone's doing well. And he says he misses everyone greatly.
Oh.
So that's with that. That's it for your news. Anybody else have any other business?
Not
I have a question,
Okay.
actually. I take it we're probably going to cancel our Christmas party, our dinner meeting.
That's correct. We will not be able to have a formal meeting as we have in the past.
Right.
I would like to maybe consider, and actually we were thinking about this a little bit yesterday, maybe doing a virtual meeting even where, you know, we all just kind of have a cheers with each other, and I don't know, maybe we'll order pizzas or something. I don't know. I'll deliver, instead of delivering reports, I'll just deliver you all food that night, and then with your notes for the meeting. And yeah, we'll try and get together virtually maybe, but we won't be having a get together. I think at this time it's probably best not to go to a public place.
Yes.
So
agreed.
No,
So,
library
unfortunately.
board, we just decided as a library board too that we would do nothing in December. So
yeah. And we're not sure our update from the town hall perspective as to when we're opening we had a meeting about it today. For sure, it won't be before January, and it may be extended. It sounds as if it may be extended to March, but not confirmed yet. So be expecting to be doing committee member meetings virtually for probably into the spring at least, for sure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Well, we're so good at it now, really. Why would we want to go to town hall?
actually, I don't really mind. I don't mind these anymore.
No,
I kind of like these.
Now that you get used to it, right? It's not as, you don't have to like,
It's easier.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
it's way better than driving to town hall in a snowstorm too. That's
There you go.
Yeah, very true.
so it seems to be working well. We haven't had any complaints about it. So I think we'll continue processing it and doing it this way. So if there's nothing else.
So if no further business, the